My wife and I had just moved into our new home that we designed, and we were standing in the front yard, and it was nothing more than dirt and dreams at that point. And up pulls a little red foreign pickup truck. And this little man gets out of it, and he starts walking towards me, and I'm standing at the edge of the yard kind of looking at things, trying to figure out what to do. And he starts asking me questions about how long have we lived here, what are our plans for the yard, and we start talking about grasses and hedges, and all of this goes on, and he's just questioning me about the various opportunities. Asks me who we've met in the neighborhood, starts pointing out the other houses, and there might be about 4 of them out there at the time. But he knows everybody already. And what he volunteered to do was give me a price for when I got the yard fixed up. Well, I took him up on that because I had just come back from Okinawa. And a similar thing happened to me in Okinawa when I moved on base to the housing. I went over to pick up the required information, you know, the lawnmower and the hedge trimmers and everything to keep my own house, my own base house up to spec. And the sergeant gave me all that stuff, asked me where I live, signed it all out, and I loaded it up the car and took it home. I got it out. Up shows this little Okinawan guy about this tall. He wants to know what I'm doing in his yard. I said, excuse me? He says, this is my yard. I take care of this yard. It costs you this much for me to take care of your yard. I went, done deal. Put all the stuff back in the car, took it back over to the PX and gave it back to him. Just, why didn't you tell me? He says, oh, it's a lot more fun for you to learn for yourself.
It's fun.
So this guy took care of my yard for me the whole time I was on Okinawa, the time I was in the military. I come home, I don't own a lawnmower. I got a house, it's got almost 1/3 of an acre of dirt, and I still don't own a lawnmower. It was 22 years before I bought my first lawnmower because Bob Sandlin kept my yard. It wasn't mine, really, it was his. He showed up whenever it needed to be cut. I didn't have to call him. He trimmed the hedges when the hedges needed to be trimmed. Actually, it was almost a trick to get him to not do more than we were paying him for. Because when the leaves would fall in the winter, my wife would lock the gate in the backyard because we weren't paying him to do that, and he'd come do it anyway. So every time Bob didn't show up, we got worried about his health. We'd go look for him, trying to figure out where he was, what was going on, because that just wasn't like him. Bob had us as a customer for life. We're not only his customers, we're his friends. We helped him and his family move to their second retirement home in East Texas. So I started thinking about what was the difference between Bob Heckman's yard guy and my yard guy, and what makes us keep coming back to the same place over and over again. Well, it's certainly not about location, because I want you to think about this, ladies, for a moment. How far do you drive to get to your hairdresser? And how many existing hairdressers do you pass getting there? And you're not the only one, guys. Where do you go to get your hair cut? How long have you been going there? And how many barbershops do you pass to get to the one you're going to now? So keeping customers for life isn't about location. I got sad news for these guys who are investing their money in bank locations and branches. It's not about location. It's about service. And service is about trust. And trust is an interesting thing. Stephen Covey talks about trust. He wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. Here's some interesting information. Watson Wyatt is a leading HR specialist, and they do an annual survey about trust. In their 2006 survey, only 39% of senior leaders were trusted. There are 4 principles that create trust. The first principle is good communications. Okay? The second one is being responsible. And the third one is having integrity. But the fourth one is results. You can have a great personal relationship, but it won't stand up to a business dealing until you add your ability to deliver results. So those are the four core principles: integrity, communication, responsibility, and results. So here's the challenge for a moment. I want you to look at each other in little groups of threes here. You can do this pretty quickly. And talk to each other about what integrity means. How do you identify someone that has integrity? What are their core principles? What are the ways that you define integrity? I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to chat with each other. I'm sure you've all got some great ideas. And then I'm going to ask you to share them back with me. So we're just going to take threes around the table and talk about integrity for a second or two.
Honest.
I see integrity in people like George here.
Well, I think he had the best statement of it is that someone who's willing to deliver the good news and the bad news to you when it needs to be told, and also the integrity to me and a lot of the different businesses that I deal with and see are the service provider or the person who will do things to make a deal work without any expectation of recognition, to go the extra mile to make everything go smoothly, even realizing that no one is going to notice that and not expecting to be noticed for their efforts. That's a real big plus for me for integrity.
Thank you. Well, integrity is a pretty high standard, isn't it? And it's a very difficult standard to live up to on a daily basis, day in and day out. When you just listen to what we've said about how we judge others and their integrity, I'm going to remind you that we judge ourselves by our intentions. And we can have the best of intentions. Everyone else judges us by our actions. So keep that in mind. You can have the best of intentions, but it's your actions that speak louder than words.